Happy 4th of July, everybody. I wanted to take the 4th of July and look at it from a different perspective, if you will. We've all heard the saying that history is written by the successor, right? But you've also heard me say on a number of occasions here that we learn much more from our failures than our successes. So let's look at it from the perspective of Britain and the epic failure that they had in losing America in what we call Independence Day. So Independence Day was on July 4th, 1776. But if you remember, that's the day that they declared their independence from Great Britain. It also started a war. It started a conflict that lasted 5 years to win that true independence from Britain. So let's look and ask, why did Britain lose? They were absolutely the superior power at the time. But what happened? If you look at the colonies, they were building unity. They had a huge dislike for unfair taxation without representation. But you also had other things going on at the time. The Enlightenment and new ideas of individual rights and liberties was starting to take over. History was against Britain, if you will. Very much the mad tyrant is kind of how they were presented. But were they really? That's a whole lot deeper dive. But what else? Britain severely underestimated their enemies, their determination, their resilience. As the war kind of continued to go on, they had challenges at home with a very expensive, costly war that caused great financial strain, which was hugely unpopular. Why did it cause such a big strain? Well, think about the logistics of fighting a war on a different continent. Back in those days, it took 6 to 8 weeks to go from Britain to America. And that's just the East Coast, right? If you needed to get any inland at all, that could easily take more days because you're walking and marching and taking horses that you brought across the entire ocean with you. It's not cheap or easy to do that kind of stuff in the 1700s. Also, the military strategy that was used. Britain very much used the large-scale confrontation, line up and shoot troops that had been popular to that point. War was very honorable, where America came in and forget that. We're going to shoot you from behind trees and set up booby traps and a lot of guerrilla warfare tactics. A whole new type of military strategy that they deployed that Britain just wasn't ready for and couldn't handle. U.S. also had a lot of foreign assistance. When you're at the top, like Britain was, everybody wants to take you down, and France was happy to jump on and help America out. A lot of different things going on that really led to Britain's downfall. But I can't help but take a step back and kind of just ask, can you imagine if Britain would just addressed the colonies' grievances, fair taxation, giving them representation in Parliament, more fair trade? What if they put in place stronger local governance and treated them more as actual states instead of slave states? Could that help build diplomacy and build unity versus kind of the divide in the lesser man that they had? That they wanted freedom. Probably super important, useful lessons for today, right? Just imagine if they would have done some of those things before the conflict happened. There might not have been a war. We might just be states of Britain still to this day. Now, any of you history buffs out there, you're absolutely going to point out other lessons and things that I'm oversimplifying and leaving out here to do this. But once again, this is just a short Five for Friday of just taking something that we all know about and spinning it a little bit differently and thinking, how do they epically fail? Well, these are some of the reasons. And is it as simple as diplomacy, fair taxation, and representation that could have stopped this whole thing in its track? Maybe you would have just punted it down the road a little bit. But what in these lessons can you apply to your existing work or your life? Be curious to learn. And by the way, happy Independence Day, everybody. Hope you have a wonderful long weekend, and we'll see you next week.